I don't know if I know how to listen to poetry, so I'm just curious, what does a poet think when she hears another poet reads? What do you look for? What do you listen to? Now, you were very dramatic, you know, your hands did a lot, you know, when you read. Yours did less, you know, but what do you listen to when you listen to a poet? What do you look for?
That's a good question. We have to think about that.
I actually prefer to see poems on paper. I'm not so good at listening as I am reading on paper, and I really love it if I've already, I do best if I've read the poems beforehand,
Yeah.
and then I listen, then I really get something from it.
But it's like music,
Yeah.
in some ways. But you were really looking and listening. I mean, when I saw your body, you know, you were really there and you were really, you know, zeroed in on her reading. I was just
The
curious.
extreme form of advice, and I don't recommend anybody, although CERN said, writing when properly managed is another name for conversation. It is not. But it's the notion of remembering, getting the voice of the poem, and trying to get that when you read it. You know, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It is a faint attempt, I think, to do that. But it's, I'm aware that I'm reading to people, I'm speaking to people, and in conversation, you know, with gestures, so it's almost hard not to do that. So it's coming from a different place, I guess.
And I had been wondering along that line, if each time you read your poems, after not seeing them for a while, not thinking of them for a while, do they sound differently to you? Do you reflect differently? And do they take on different meanings thereby to yourself?
That's a good question, isn't it?
Sometimes. I mean, I think most poets read their poems aloud when they're working on them,
Right.
so that, you know, so you do really hear the poem before you read it to an audience. But sometimes I read poems and they really resound from the poems I read, you know, a long time ago.
Yeah,
that's really nice. And sometimes not so much. I read a poem and go, you know, why did I choose that poem? Or why, you know, or I almost want to revise it once in a while I'm reading it.
That is actually a good test when you're writing them, to read it out loud, because if you've used, you can see on the page, sometimes it's hard to see that. And if you read it, if you've gone on too long, you've used too many adjectives, you can catch that when you hear it, you can feel it. And so reading, even if you're not reading to an audience, reading something out loud, is a different relationship with the material, and it is helpful. But so those of you when you're reading, when you mention a poem you might have written a long time ago, you do have that experience. Where did I put that line in? I will now strike it out. It's different.
And I tell my students, I don't know if you do that, if you're reading poems on the page, you really should be reading loud too, because the sound
that's
of the
really
poems is so important, you know. And sometimes I choose things just obviously not for the sense, for the sound, so it's really important to hear them loud.
That's very good advice.
Along the same line, have either of you had the experience of hearing other people read your work? And I'm curious, what's that like? I mean, almost like music being performed. You've written music, but someone else is performing it. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, I haven't had exactly that, but I think so.
I have once or twice somebody's, you know, at a reading or something, somebody has read, you know, asked them to read one of my poems aloud. It's unusual, you know, it's fun.
I mean, does it reveal something more to you?
It'd be fun to hear it, wouldn't it, to see how someone else
I love it when people want to talk about my poems or ask me, you know, about them or, you know, to talk about my own stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've had people read it.
Do you use somebody else when you're writing, if you're doing creative stuff and revising? Do you bounce it off other people, or do you wait until you finish the product before you share it?
I used to do it a lot more. I mean, I used to have friends and certain particular people that I really depended on. I think I've gotten so I trust myself a little bit more, but I still have, certain people that I like to show my books to before. But I don't always show my books before I send them out anymore. I used to always do that, and finding really good readers, I think, is hard but great to find somebody who can really read your stuff.
Knows what you want to do and knows your work. Yeah. I think time is the great teacher here. You write something, this is terrific, and you put it when you look at it the next month, oh, this is not quite as good as I thought. And you look at it a week later and you think, oh, now how did I use all this? And it's like this on, I should have put this in. Didn't even Emily Dickinson, as proud as she was, have a sister-in-law or someone to whom she showed the poems? You could tell me more about that, someone from the museum more than that. But I do remember that there was someone that she also showed work to.
And aging it, I do think is really important, like you said.
Yeah.
I have a couple of students who get really excited about their work and send it right out.
Okay.
Every time I've done that, I just feel terrible. Like the next day or 2 days later, you look at it and just know you should have held back.
That was a good first draft. Now we've worked on it, right?
Question for Nancy. You said you sometimes collaborate with a photographer.
Yeah.
And you are doing the same, you're looking
Oh,
at
the same
landscape. Can you tell us more about that collaboration?
Oh, okay.
How
Yeah.
you influence each other, or what this is all about?
One of the nice things about not only the photos of children's books is that you also, in the product, it's a kind of collaboration. You have illustration. I have done both illustration, but I would prefer to have someone else do it. There's so many good illustrators out there. But what's I think the best collaboration is if you really meet the person. Often with children's book illustration, you never meet your illustrator until after you've done the book. And I suppose because the editor wants to be sure the author does not call the illustrator and say, would you please make it like this? Because you've got to give the illustrator freedom to interpret. Any collaboration is 50-50 as I'm concerned. The illustrator has the freedom to interpret, and you give the person the text that you've worked on also. But the ones that you're talking about, the one that I went with Eric, that's my husband, which is easy, of course, to go out with him. There he is. We go out often together and look at the subject. And what I think he's doing working in space. That is to say, it's a moment in time in space, and he's got to get it all in one image. Whereas I can't do that. I'm working in time. So it's the way narrative is a story. So my stories, or my poem will often be a narrative, or bring in the sense of not the sight, the other four senses, sound, which you can't quite into a photographer, touch. Sight is the one that he is focusing on. So I will notice different things, and I like trying, but I might not have found the poem if I hadn't gone out working with someone who was working visually, so I could see what he was thinking. So there are many, many ways to collaborate. I think that's an unusual one. I had a friend once she was doing woodcuts, and she wanted to collaborate on a book, so she sent I think 6 at a time. Woodcuts. They were very simple. She said, do you see anything in here for a poem? They were all one style because it was going to be one format in a book. So that was another way to work, just simply from the visual material and not talk to her about it at all. And have the freedom to do what I wanted to say about these things. So there's many ways. Don't you think it's very stimulating to work with someone else?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because you kind of have to write the same sensibility.
Yeah, that is the important thing. Come in a different wavelength, it can be a disaster. This is the thing you wouldn't probably get about this anyhow. Have you done that?
No,
collage.
Yeah, and the guy who did the cover of my book has wanted to do that, but I, write to do paintings to my poems and vice versa. But I feel like we're not quite in the same sync. So I love the cover of the book, so it hasn't quite worked. But I would like to try that.
When you mentioned collage, are you doing those kinds of things yourself?
Well, I think my poems are collage, but I also cut up
That's
photographs.
what I figured.
I cut up photographs and make collages myself all the time, just because I like that whole process.
These voices emerging from behind.
I especially like the frogs because it made me feel like it was spring. Thank you so much. Thank you.
whether we invite faculty from outside on another college transcript, or as the University Chancellor's office is open, to dialogue with the university to see if we could offer courses of Catholic thought, Catholic understanding of Scripture on the university curriculum. As you know or may know, Hillel presently does that through Judaic Studies, Hillel, the Jewish student group. And as you know, probably too, the ARC, the Episcopalian group, does it. And you probably can imagine the university is going to say, well, gee whiz, Newman, why don't you offer these Catholic classes? You know, it's probably incumbent upon us to offer them, and for credit. Because most of our students here, I know from my job, unlike my generation, most of them take 16 hours a week in courses. They work 20 hours a week driving a bus, washing dishes, stacking books. They might want to be in a relationship or explore relationships. They don't have a lot of free time. But if we can offer classes for credit, we can have a stronger Catholic laity in our Commonwealth and a stronger church moving forward. And I think Newman can really be a big part of that happening. So what I share with you, from my perspective, there's so much. Father Joe touched all our lives. We've all been accepted by him, welcomed by him, encouraged by him. And this beautiful cafeteria, that we have dinner here tonight, is a place of refuge, a place of that students can feel welcome. But the next two steps to build on the work of focus, their evangelizing, reaching out on campus, and finally this education piece, offering our students the tools to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to their field, their professional life. I think it's very energizing for me anyhow, and I think Father Quigley would very much want us to continue the hospitality he offered. He was someone that really believed also in sharing what Jesus has done for us. We can continue that and bring that education piece along. Again, for courses for credit. So again, thank you for being with us. And you heard Mark tonight and the beautiful music that he led, our music director, with our student and adult choir. And Chris Clark, our wonderful director of religious education and campus minister, who brings about so much of the religious education with so much of our talents. It's the most talented religious education faculty I've seen. On the second grade, some of the second grade teachers are here. I mean, those kids in second grade, they know more than the seminarians know. I'm in those classes, they're wonderful. So God bless you, and I'm grateful to Mark Sullivan, Chancellor Bromry and his family. You may know Chancellor Bromry and his family are responsible for the foundation's renovation, giving a huge gift to the Newman to make that possible. As I said at Mass, Bishop, of course, never expected it would get to the place it is now in terms of the cost. And we need to do some things about furniture, as you can tell, but we will with the help of God and you too. So we're grateful to so many of you making this all possible. Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you for just a minute about, well, first of all, I have a letter that I have been asked to read. This is from John W. Ryan. It says, one-time Secretary of Umass, Chancellor Emeritus UMass Boston, and President Emeritus Indiana University, and he wanted to share his thoughts by this letter. It says, all friends of Father Quigley, I hope it is not too presumptuous of me to send this brief reminiscence of Father Joe, a most unusual man. Pat and I met the Quig in 1962 when he registered us in St. Bridget's Parish. Thus began a friendship of more than 40 years. The Quig and Father Delahanty, another unique character, joined the Ryan clan at our cottage at Wrexham Beach in Marshfield for wonderful times of swimming. The Quig was not very athletic. Lobster eating, the Quig was champion, and much good association. One summer, the old Irishman in the cottage behind us hosted a group of nuns, one being his niece, for a weekend, and simultaneously it coincided with a visit to us by the fathers. Being inexpert in driving in sand, the sisters soon were stuck fast. The two hero priests, incognito to the nuns of course, rushed to the rescue and, contrary to my expectations, actually freed the vehicle. And the sisters left for home. Both the Quig and Delahuti, that's Quig's term, told, retold, and greatly embellished the story, but swore me to secrecy. As you know, Father Quigley took humble responsibility for the successful conclusion of the Second World War. And who knows, with him on our side, the Divine One could not be neutral. The Quig was truly a man of God. If ever anyone needed some stimulant to one's faith, and who doesn't, a minute with him was enough to get things straight. He wasn't much good at geography. One summer, he and Delahanty came to Arizona for a visit with us. The Quig called to confirm everything and said while in Tempe, the two of them would rent a car and run over to Albuquerque to visit Quig's sister, and then seek out the noble red man, probably at the Grand Canyon. While I picked them up at Sky Harbor, prepared to discourage grandiose plans, Father Quigley said that the aircraft had been doing nearly 500 miles an hour, and it took an hour and a half to reach Phoenix. Now that's, of course, from Boston. The trip, needless to say, the trip to Albuquerque was off. Well, Father Quigley made his life better for me, as I'm sure you can all attest for yourselves. I shall always be thankful for the privilege, the blessing of knowing him. God bless you all. Sincerely, John W. Ryan. Father Quig always liked to have three parts to his homilies. And for the work that he has left behind, three different funds from three different groups have been established. You've heard Lorraine talk about Heart Speaks to Heart, where she can use money to help people's immediate needs. Very similar to other groups. I'm with the Knights of Columbus. We do the same type of thing, St. Vincent de Paul. It's done confidentially, it's done privately, and there's a fund that's available to help. That's one aspect of what Father Quig did with his own money and his own time. I've set up a scholarship in Father Quig's name to help students who come to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I gave $50,000 to establish that about a year and a half ago because I wanted to do it while Father Quigley was alive. I didn't want to give it to him when he was dead. I didn't think he'd appreciate it as much. And he was so very grateful. But I wanted him to know what a great man he was to me. So I've started that. Tonight I'm going to put another 25 towards that over the course of the next 2 years on a matching basis. Thank you. The clapping should be for Father Quigley because he's the inspiration for it all. But it'd be on a matching basis, so anyone who would like to contribute, that would raise the fund to $100,000. And while my initial intent, or with the money that will be raised from the interest, will be only maybe 1,000 or 2,000, 1 to 3 scholarships. My ultimate hope is if it can grow large enough that it can become a substantial contribution to the financial burden that students have. Right now, I believe it's about $16,000 for a young person to come to school here. I think it was like 4 or 5 when I went, and I had to take out loans, and it took me 10 years to pay them off. But that's a lot of pressure if that can be relieved in a little way in Father Quigley's name. Now, this is not going to be an easy thing to get because you got to have at least a C average. Because Father Quig didn't think you had to be the brightest person in the world. But he wanted you to have, but if you worked hard, you know, he wanted you to have some basic. But I want to make sure the person's got at least trying. So I want to see, you can get it in any course you want. I did not get it in French. She was beautiful, red-headed French girl. She didn't speak English, and I didn't speak French. We never understood one another, but it was a pleasure to go to class. But C average, or whatever the grade point equivalent would be.
Can you get a D in algebra?
You can, as long as you still maintain the C average. And it will be after your first year, so I want to make sure the person can at least get through the first year. After that, provide some help, a C average, and be in good standing with the university. Unlike me, I don't want, you know, don't almost get thrown out because your roommate puts a hole in the wall. And the other thing is, I want them to not pass, but take a little questionnaire that has to do with Father Quigley and his life, based on his sermons, because we have those on CD, we have them written, based on his book, God's Present List. And the selection committee will prepare a short questionnaire, and the people will answer this. The object being that they will have to respond to what Father Quigley thought was important in the lives of students and individuals, and how you live a good life and to carry on that work. So that will be the initial criteria. We'll set it up. We'll put the committee together. I would like to see if we could to get something started for next year, the next fall semester. We'll pay it in 1 or 2 semesters as is needed by the student, but it will carry on, and hopefully the little questionnaire will help that person come to realize something about their life, how to live a good life, how to contribute, how to give back, not just take, but give back. And in a time of crisis, may come up with some useful tidbit that will help them through or help someone else. So that's the goal, and so that's my contribution. The next contribution is the second program. The second part the third part is another program that is very important to Father Sean, and it's called Quig's Corps. It's a volunteer endowment fund. The purpose of this is that there'll be 2 students from the University of Massachusetts who have graduated, a man and a woman, who will then spend another year in service here through the Newman Center to encourage students to participate in helping others. It will be focusing on those most in need, those who are in need of encouragement, those who are in need around the world who have very little resources, the types of people that Father Quigley loved to spend his life taking care of. And so this is a fund that Father has already started to fund. I understand Jamie Capetta has also contributed, and so that is underway, and I'm not sure exactly when it will get started, but the idea is to help cover the room and the board and make it easy for this person to devote their time and energy to helping others, finding those in the university, helping them learn how to help others, and then going out and doing that. So those are the 3 funds we have. The fund that Lorraine has talked about to help on immediate financial needs, mine, which is a little more long-term in the form of the scholarship, and then Father Sean's, which program, the endowment, which will take Father Quig's work and actually put it into practice through graduates of the university, and hopefully make them better contributors to their world and community as they grow and develop in life. So we hope that you are the seeds for this. You are the mustard seed at this point in time. You're the first to know about all this stuff. Go out and tell others. Spread the word. If you know people who knew Father Quigley, let them know that there are now programs that Newman is operating that will help carry on the work of Father Quigley. And with that, every one of you will be helping to contribute to spread the mission that Father Quigley devoted his life to. When I was at Father Quigley's funeral, I felt very liberated. For some reason, I don't usually go to funerals and feel liberated, but I really did. Because I felt Father Quigley when we went to the graveyard, was sitting up there on the stone of the fellow next to him, and just having a chat, hi, nice to meet you, and watching all of us give him a great send-off. And it reminded me of a Franciscan priest. Some of you may remember Father Michael Judd. He was the first person to be given a death certificate from 9/11. He died when falling debris hit him and killed him as he was giving last rites to a fireman. And at his funeral, which was on television, I was listening to it, and his father Duffy was wonderful. Maybe because he's Irish, he was so good, but he just had a wonderful way of words. And but I'm going to take his words and I'm going to substitute Father Quigley for Father Michael, because I think it reflects what we're trying to do through these funds and actually through all of this that we've done here tonight. So I'll read this to you and then do a wrap-up.